And they're trying to tell us that working in grocery now is an entry-level job. No, it's not. When the pandemic happened, who was open? Where were people at? The grocery store and at the healthcare offices, both of who we represent.
We have on the line with us a couple of really exciting guests, and we're going to be talking about the subject of organizing in a transient workforce. Getting people like in grocery stores and universities is what we're going to be talking about today. But in any transient workplace where most people will be gone in a few years, how do you get them to rightly understand that engaging with the union is important? They need to participate in the union. How do you get them to understand that? And, you know, people in other union workplaces, even outside of the transient kind, have issues with engagement and things like that. So a lot of these lessons, I believe, are going to be able to be replicated in other workplaces. And so I think that there's going to be a lot to learn for everybody here. And so I'm really excited for the conversation. We have on the line Ramona Malczynski, president of UE Local 1466 at the University of New Mexico, and Joe Solorio, grocery and retail division director of UFCW Local 3000 in the Pacific Northwest. He comes out of Fred Meyer's. Ramona, Joe, thank you for taking the time to talk to us today. I appreciate it.
Definitely.
Thanks, Jacob.
Absolutely. So, Ramona, we'll start with you and we'll ask the question, why is it important to have members engaged, right? Why can't members join the union and give all of their problems to the union? Why can't I, as a new grad student working at the University of New Mexico, just call you up and say, hey, I've got a problem, Ramona, fix it for me? Why is that not a viable option for unions?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jacob. Well, first of all, the boss isn't scared of, a union staff or a union representative or even just a few union organizers. What the boss is scared of is hundreds of workers who do essential functions for the university to decide not to come to work that day or cause a disruption in the work or cause public outrage. That's what the boss is scared of, and that's what will get things done. In our unionization campaign, the University of New Mexico threatened to sue us over recognition. The Public Employee Labor Relations Board almost didn't want to define us as public workers, even though we work at the largest public employer in the state of New Mexico. And what got them to do what we wanted is getting out hundreds of workers to major actions like a 600-person rally in September of 2021, when the Labor Board put out a draft recommendation saying that we weren't public employees. We got them to reverse that recommendation. And then later, another rally with members and local community members that put pressure on the university to drop a planned lawsuit against us over that recognition. So I just want to add that in our local, all of our elected leadership, we're basically volunteers, right? We're doing this on top of our normal work, family, taking care of ourselves, because we believe that unions can change our working conditions and change higher education on the whole. We can't do it alone. 20 people cannot do something like this alone. We need the help of every single member to get the job done. I think I'll pass it off to Joe. I could say so much more, but we have time.
No, great. I think that's great, Ramona. And I think you're right. Like, we always tell our members, union membership is like a gym membership. You don't sign up to the gym and then you get fit and you get muscles and you're already ready to go. No, you have to put into it. You have to show up to the gym. You have to work. I was a shop steward for 4 years at Fred Meyer, and it was actually super great to know, like, people were counting on me to sit in on wine gardens, and they knew I could be there without having to wait for a union rep or having to go through the whole rigmarole of like getting someone down there. I was confident enough with enough training through UFCW 21 at the time where I knew how to run a successful wine garden meeting. I knew how to represent someone, ask the questions, take a caucus or a break if we needed to. So I think it's super important to get our members involved right away. And one thing we stress for when we train our shop stewards is meet the new members as they come in. Like get those new
Mm.
members fast as they come in to let them know here's a union value. This is a contract. This is legal and binding language that you can use if you feel you are not getting, treated correctly or fairly through the process. So I mean, just showing them the value of not even just a contract, but what the union does, how we are in the community, how we have new member meetings, we have general membership meetings. There's always an avenue we try to get our members plugged in. And I think that's super important. If you want an active union, the union itself needs to be active
Mm.
politically, in community, just in trainings and trying, we work with the We Train, which is workforce development, like trying to plug people in where they need to get in because you can't have an active membership if your union is not active itself.
Let's stay with you, Joe, and can you started to go into some of that, but can you give us a little bit more as far as like how can you tell that your members are engaged, maybe in one workplace or another, and thinking, so that the people listening are like, okay, yeah, this isn't just some guy telling me that the members should be engaged, but his members are not. What are some of the ways that you've been able to tell that, yes, my members are engaged, like thinking about percentage maybe that go to union meetings or, that's not the most
Yeah.
important thing, but like how many people turn out to rallies, things like that.
No, definitely. I mean, one way that we just have to listen to the members. Like we had this bargain with PCC. It's a consumer co-op here, one of the largest co-ops in the nation, and they were really, really wanting transparency. They wanted to know what was happening. We went into a bargain. It was the first time our local had ever done it, but I'm so glad we did. We had an opening bargaining session. The membership, it was 1,600 members, so it's a little bit easier than our
Mm.
35,000 member bargain that we're going into with this upcoming one in 2025. But with this 1,600 member unit, we decided to open it up. We said, okay, open bargaining. You want to come sit in and watch the process? Come watch. You want to see what we're talking about? Come listen. You want to ask questions? Come ask. And I felt like doing that, like really engaged the membership in a way where they had the buy-in. And then at
Mm.
first they were coming in thinking like maybe something nefarious was going on, or I don't know why. But then they would sit there just like, whoa, you guys got it under control. This is great. I'm not going to come back, but I see you're doing so. I think just opening up to members and listening and to say like, if that's what you want, then let's try to fix it. Let's try to figure that out
Mm.
because I think like once you start listening to workers and once you're hearing what the workers want to do as a union, we paddle the boat. We don't drive it. Our members should be driving.
Mm.
We should be the resource. We should be advocating for them and listening to them to say like, okay, well, what do you want to do and how are you going to do it? And that's how you get buy-in. Because if you're just saying this is the way we've done it, this is the way we've always done it, just do it and we'll be successful. That's not always going to be like something that a younger worker wants to do. So I think
Mm.
like as we evolve in this movement that we're trying to build here, I think like that's what we need to do is listen. And a good organizer always listens. So I say listen to what the workers want to do, get their ideas and creativity and their buy-in. And once you got that, it's going to be a lot easier to push the program than to just say, just do it the way we've been doing it since the 60s.
Mm.
Doesn't
Mm.
work like that all the time. So I think just trying to hear more and listen more and be more accessible is gonna pay dividends when you're trying to move a workforce, especially as indifferent as it can get into the grocery because there's so much turnover in grocery, right? There's so much people that are like, no, I'm not going to do this for what you're paying, and you're making me do two other people's jobs, and the staffing sucks. Like, no, I'd rather go somewhere else. So I
Mm.
think like trying to meet the members where they're at and then advocating in the way that they want to go and following is so much better than trying to like drag them along with your same program you've been doing for the last 20 years.
Ramona, what about it? What about your local? How engaged do you feel like your members are?
Yeah, I mean, I want to build off what Joe said, and then I'll get into the specifics. But I think for me, with union organizing, it's a transformational experience if you're doing it right. Like Joe said, I think in this society, people don't get asked, what do you think? Or what do you want to do? Or how can we change the world we live in? And I think the union gives an opportunity for people to feel that and experience that. And I have seen people who didn't really know what a union was. Maybe one of our stewards in the biology department, she told me that she wasn't sure about unions when she came into graduate school, but over some months, she heard about us. She eventually came to an open caucus we had during bargaining where we asked members, do you want to hold a rally in 10 days? And if so, can you all help organize it? Because the bargaining team, like, we can't do it on our own. We need members and stewards engaged in building this rally. And she was one of the people who pushed for that rally and made it happen. So you can see this transformation. And she's told me now she is regularly engaged. She's developing speaking skills, analytical skills, graphic design, communication. So you can really see people transform when you ask them what they think and you try to open up the local to all members. And it's a really difficult process that requires a lot of patience, communication, ability to give feedback, give and take. And I think that that's something that we don't experience a lot in our society, to be honest. So I just want to echo what Joe said. The picture behind me is a photo of when we delivered our intent to bargain to the university administration. So we try to build in membership engagement at every step. On Thursday, we're having a sticker day where our goal is to get 400 people to wear stickers, which is kind of the first step in an escalation process towards our contract reopener in April. And just trying to build in these structure tests, engagement tests all along the way as we build power to larger goals. Right now we have 44% membership. I just asked our data chair this morning. It's not where we want to be, but for public sector, it's decent, especially here in New Mexico where we're just starting to build a union culture here in the state. It's been difficult with the Janus Supreme Court ruling. We have to, deeply organize for every single card we get. We have to explain why dues are important, why collective action matters. At our general membership meetings, which happen once a month, we've been getting about 40 to 50 people this academic year, which is a great improvement. And it's people who are new organizers, people who aren't stewards, so just rank and file members. And I think the way that we've been able to do that is by engaging them in the meeting. We ask other people to speak. Hopefully I don't speak at the meeting. I don't think the president and the elected executive council should speak that much at these meetings, but we should get reports from stewards, from rank and file members, other than, the things we have to report on, like treasury and things like that. But yeah, I think what Joe said, letting the members drive our union. And for me as a president, it took a lot of reflection to decide to take this role. Because I've been in elected leadership for a while, but I think as we were talking about who should be on executive council, we were thinking about who can help guide based on the experience that we have, rather than who can, lead or tell people what to do. So it's kind of a different approach to leadership.
Right. I think that makes a lot of sense. And you spoke some about some of the difficulties. You mentioned Janus in particular. I'm a federal employee. I'm a member of AFGE. I'm a steward, and so I completely understand the difficulty there in having to be basically in a right to work environment and fight for every dues payer. And so beyond the kind of public sector stuff about being in a more or less right to work environment, what are some of the other difficulties, Ramona, that come with a transient workforce, being in having members who are either going after their master's degree or their PhD like you are, and knowing that they're probably not going to be there in 6, 7 years, maybe even 5 years. What are some of the difficulties with engaging a membership like that? And then what are some of the best practices for overcoming those difficulties?
Yeah, I really want to hear Joe's take on this. I'll start out, but I have kind of an interesting take on it. For me, so right before we started talking today, I looked up what was the median number of years that people are in jobs in the US. And it said that the median number or the middle number is about 4 years. That's around the same amount of time that people are in grad school. Master's degrees usually take about 2 to 3 years, and then PhDs usually take 4 to 6 years. So people are staying at the University of New Mexico around 4 years. And just to talk a little bit about the types of workers that we represent 1,600 teaching assistants, graduate assistants, and research assistants. We teach 20% of the undergraduate classes and some graduate classes. We bring in millions of dollars to the university for research. And then we do a lot of administrative tasks to keep programs running. I know that different workplaces have different conditions, and the fact that someone might leave is difficult. But one thing that I do push back on a lot in our strategy meetings is I say, this is something that many workplaces have to deal with. Going back to that median number of how long people are in jobs, I think that kind of helps overcome the idea of, or the mentality of defeatism. Like, what's the point in organizing because we're all going to leave soon? That's probably true for most workplaces, to be honest. But I think that the larger problem is that in academia and in this country as a whole, there's this idea that if you just keep your head down and you stay quiet and you work hard, that you're going to get rewarded for your hard work. And we know that that's not true. That's why workers have organized, because we don't get paid our fair share. We don't get the health care we deserve. We're not able to take care of our families. So I think many academic workers, they're thinking, okay, if I just grind for 4 years, then I'm going to get rewarded by a job as a full-time professor or researcher. But that's becoming more and more elusive in academia. And once you get to that level, you're not getting compensated very much either. It's not like going to be a huge pay increase or what you deserve anyway. So I think kind of breaking through that mindset of, yeah, you're going to leave, but is it going to be better when you leave? Wherever you work after this is going to have the same problems. So might as well start organizing now. And then when you leave, organize in the place that you work at next. And I kind of got that mentality talking to some Starbucks workers here in Albuquerque who are trying to unionize, just kind of that idea that no matter where you go, workers are going to have the same issues. So might as well start addressing them now and thinking more in the broader framework of building worker power and trying to transform higher education and industries as a whole.
Hey, 5 seconds. Just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate. I think that is fascinating. I guess now, like, thinking about it, it makes sense that the median, time that you're at a job is like 4 years at this point. Thinking it to my place of work, I've been there for 7 years, and it's actually kind of longer than most of my coworkers. There's not a single person who's been in my program longer than I have, actually. There are some people who've worked at the same workplace, in different programs, but yeah, that's interesting that maybe all workplaces in the U.S. are transient at this point. Yeah, I'm interested in your thoughts on that, Joe, and generally, how you deal with a workforce that is turning over at such a quick rate.
Yeah, well, definitely. I mean, I myself, when I started at Fred Meyer in 2007, it was a job my mom helped me get. She already had worked there. She knew people, and I just needed some work as I came out from California. So I had it. I'm like, I'm not going to be here long. They would try to get me involved in meetings. I'm not going to be here. Don't worry. I'm finding a better job. I'm going to get a better job. But like, once I was working the job, I'm like, wow, I only have to work 15 hours a week to qualify for healthcare. And I'm only paying $10 premiums for this Cadillac plan of healthcare. Oh, and they tell me after 5 years, I'm going to be vested in a pension. I have a wage scale. I have all this contract language that protects me. It started to look like a good job. And what we're trying to tell people, these used to be middle-class jobs. You could work as a produce clerk, put your family in a house, get a car, send your kids to college, and the capitalist bastards took it away from us. And they're trying to tell us that working in grocery now is an entry-level job. No, it's not. Because entry level, when the pandemic happened, who was open? Where were people at? At the grocery store and at the healthcare offices. That's both of who we represent. So what we're trying to recapture and reclaim is that that middle class dream of working in a grocery store is a good job and it should remain a good job. And just because we have low road employers like Whole Foods and Walmart telling us that that's not true, it's baloney. So like what we are doing at UFCW and what we try to do with all our workers is show them the value of the union and standing together. And yeah, okay, maybe you're only going to be here a couple years, but wouldn't don't you want your house clean even if you're
Mm,
not going to be in there that long? Well, help clean it. Get the broom
mm,
out. Let's come on. Come to a meeting. Show up at a rally. Go to a picket. Sit out there and leaflet. So like what we're always trying to do is create opportunities for these workers to see the value of standing together, to see the value of participating in their union because once you come to your first meeting and you think it's going to be boring and we entertain you for an hour about your workplace rights, you don't ever feel bad for showing up to the meeting. So I
mm,
think just trying to educate and let people know like, okay, maybe you are only going to be here for a year. Great. Well, what do you want your next year to look like? Do you want to
mm,
be beaten down? Do you want to have a manager that's bullying you? Or do you want to say, hey, well, I'm here. I'm going to make sure that this workplace is good. So I mean, at the end of the day, we're all human, and everyone has their what they want to do and their priorities. And hey, I'm not going to participate much, but I always tell our reps, the members participating, because guess what? Even if they're not showing up, they're still paying dues. That's still participation. So
right.
always say hi to them. Always reach out to them. Always, you never know when your next organizing conversation is going to be. So every interaction needs to be an organizing conversation in some way.
Mm,
Even if they're indifferent, let them be indifferent. Don't get down on them for being indifferent, but just say, hey, you know what? When you want to talk, I'm here. Just to show like I'm on your side, whether you know it or not, whether you want to think about it or not. Unions have got a bad name for a whole lot of different reasons, and some of it's our own fault. But I will
mm.
say, what we're trying to do at UFCW 3000 is put the power back in the hands of workers. Put the good jobs back in the grocery department. Because to be a meat cutter, to be a produce clerk, a seafood clerk, to a front end, like these people feed our families, they keep us healthy that's the work that's unseen and unthanked. But guess what? That grocery store shuts down. We saw it in the pandemic. It's an essential position.
Right.
It's essential. So trying to give that back to our middle class and out of the capitalist control of like these mega mergers and these monopolies and like just it's kind of like embarrassing to think us as a society has let these corporations really take that from us, the community part of it, because
Mm.
to shop at a grocery store is to be in the community. So it's something that we keep working for, and I thank our leadership. We're member led, we're member driven. We have 40 members that sit on our executive board that help lay out the foundation of what we're going to push for as a union. And to be honest with you, it's my favorite thing in the world to do.
Joe, do you have any, like, are there different, when you're having these organizing conversations with members, are there different strategies that you take with different kinds of members, right? Like, because I would imagine the situation of somebody who is a teenager or a young adult in their 20s and says, I'm only going to be here a year. Their situation is a little bit different than somebody who's been there for 25 years and maybe has seen some of this degradation of the employment. The employment when they started 20, 30 years ago used to be good, and they've seen it decay, and maybe in part they blame the union for that. Do you have different strategies that you go in to these conversations with different types of workers?
Definitely. No, you hit it on the head too. We have journeyman workers here that are like, well, these kids are coming in, they're making just as much as I am
Mm,
because they're not going to hire them for less. So they come out and they make just as much as I am. And like, yeah, it's hard to hear. And we always tell them, well, we have to bargain better contracts. We need to we managed to get longevity pay in one of our metropolitan market contracts, which is great. And like, that's what our members like to see. Just that reward for being
mm,
so loyal and working for this company. But yeah, you do have to go at it a little different. And what we talk about now with our journeyman workers is like, hey, well, we got the VAP now. It's a variable annuity plan. Your pension's tied to your wage. So as your wage increases, so does your pension contribution. So we don't have to bargain over that anymore. Now we could focus on dumping more money at the journeyman scale. So yeah, the conversations definitely have to be different. You have to, because you have to pivot, but you also have to show them like, this is the market. This is the market that these low road employers created for us, right? So it's like, even though at our allied stores that we represent that have union contracts have one of the best insurance plans in the country. We have pension tied to your wage. We had the 211. That's the biggest wage increases the grocery has seen in the country. We won that without having to strike. We have built into our contracts this really great contract, but at the end of the day, we're still bound down to what does Walmart pay? What does Whole Foods pay? What does Amazon Fresh or whatever what do they pay? Where's Trader Joe's? Where's Winco? Like, what are these guys doing? So that takes away the bargaining power of what we have. That's why our organizers and what we try to do is like close the loops. We got to organize these places. These workers have to come together. When we merged with 1439, they were a smaller local on the east side of Washington State. Well, our vision is a statewide bargain for grocery workers. So we could pull everyone out on strike and we'll have way more bargaining power. Like that is like worker power. So like trying to get these other workers to see like, if you organize, you come talk to us, look at these contracts that we win for people. Look at these contracts that we help members get. But this isn't because, oh, we have the best bargainers. No, it's because we have the best workers. We have the workers that are standing together, that are coming together, that are like, trying to build this solidarity. Our contract expires at grocery in May. We're already organizing our contract action team meetings, getting people together, talking about what are we going to do to make sure we're not going back to those 50-cent wage increases that we're so used to. So it's like just trying to like just show the hope for these workers. And sometimes it seems hopeless, but I feel like it's going to crack. You see UAW, you see Teamsters with these nationwide contracts, like it's going to happen. But, sometimes you just need the people at the top, whether they're union or not, to see like invest in organizing, because that's the greatest way to change is through organizing workers. That's it. You have to organize.
And that speaks to a really important point about, kind of outside the scope of this conversation about just the importance of locals investing in organizing, because there really is only so much that you can do if your one Kroger shop in Huntsville is like it's 100% organized. You have every single person's a dues payer. They're always coming out. They're always anything that you can think of that would be good for one shop to do. They're doing it. There's only so much that they can do because, the density, like, a lot of the other stores are not union. And so, there is a real kind of competition issue there that can only be rectified by increasing density and market share of union shops. There's, and so to kind of bring it back, I guess, to the scope of the conversation, kind of doing what we can with it within the shop. Ramona, you mentioned that before we started the conversation about, wanting to make sure that we touch on some of the stuff that we do outside of the shop, as in, some of the things that we can get organized within the shop to do to affect our community and our society. And so before we talk about that more broadly, I'm wondering about like, has offering those kinds of opportunities to members been something that has actually increased engagement among your members, or is that something that people who are already active in the union are taking on kind of one more task? And so I'm thinking specifically right now of my labor council, right? I'm in leadership of the labor council in North Alabama. That's the Federation of Unions and the AFL-CIO, and a lot of our kind of core group of activists within the labor council are also really active in their unions. And so I'm kind of trying to think, like, how can I engage people that are not active in their unions to be active in the labor council, but then kind of wrestling with, well, if they're going to be active, do I want to pull this potential active person away from the local? And, so there's some tensions here. And Ramona, I need you to help me think through it.
Yeah, I think that's a difficult question. I guess I'm going to go back a little bit, but I think just getting people involved, sometimes going back to the question with Joe, We tend to try to frame it in a broader way of, yeah, it is about changing your working conditions, but overall it's about dignity and feeling like you have rights and respect in your workplace. And it's about fighting for a better system of higher education, because if you're going to dedicate your life to being in higher education, don't you want it to look better? And the only way to do that, like Joe was saying, is if we organize. Similarly, we go out to pickets, rallies of other locals. We have a campus coalition with the faculty union, the staff union, the nurses, the custodians, the interns and residents at the hospital. So we've tried to build that solidarity across locals on campus. And it's something, to be honest, that I'm struggling with because I have so much responsibility to my local and the workers that I represent. And then also trying to bring together this campus coalition, which has different experiences, different ideas of how to move forward and how to build unity there. It's been difficult. But there is that trade-off of, I think when people see that we're in that coalition, they feel better about joining our union. Because some people are scared, especially international workers. They're worried about joining our union because if they lose their job, they're going to be deported, like in a couple of weeks. The way their visa works to work at the university. So when we can say we're in this coalition with other locals, I think they see like the strength in numbers. And the power that we have. It is a difficult trade-off. We just went to the APWU National Day of Action on October 1st and went to the local action here. It was, stewards, elected leaders who went, because I think a lot of the rank and file members, maybe they made that calculation of like, I don't have time to do that. But I think we try to clearly communicate the priorities. And I think that's something that we've worked on as organizers, is to communicate to stewards, new organizers, new members, like, if you can only do one thing this week, it should be this thing, because we have seen people feel overwhelmed. Like they'll say, I came to a union meeting. I actually had no idea what was going on because most Americans don't know anything about what a union is. They don't know the term, even the terminology, like what is a steward, what are dues, right, what's Janus. So we're trying to make it more accessible and be clear that here's the priority. If you have time, come out to this, and here's why it's important. But we do also kind of like strategically recruit people to be involved in like the coalition work or the solidarity work, while also trying to keep it open to everyone so it doesn't feel closed off or only for like special members, if that makes sense, because we never want it to feel like that. I'll just quickly say that we have been involved in the anti-war movement here locally, and I think that we actually brought in some stewards by doing that because they were engaged in the anti-war movement. So when they saw that our local was trying to do something, maybe we're not leading it, but we've engaged, I think that helped them build trust in our local that it's something important to be a part of. I think that also got us credibility with international students who have maybe different perspectives on the international situation. And the last couple of things I'll say is, we've gone out to, we've done the Pride March. We've stood up for all workers in our local and the rights of all people. We're doing a study group right now on Jane McAlevy's No Shortcuts, and you can see like the transformation in the thinking of the stewards who do come out to that study group and the leadership who comes out to that study group. So I think, yeah, it is one extra thing to do, but for me, if one or two organizers benefit from that, it's worth it. But also making that calculation of like not stretching yourself too thin to where you can't do like the basic functions of getting new members. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Joe, how do y'all deal with the like kind of coalition work, participation in your labor council. I don't know how active the labor council is there, but or coalition work outside of the labor council, maybe in kind of general politics in the Pacific Northwest. How do you balance that and try to make it into something that is additive, or maybe even ideally multiplicative, rather than kind of dividing and subtracting?
Yeah, no, we recently got back into like a lot of the labor councils in the area, just for the community part of it, just to like, like get in where we fit in, help our folks out. One thing, like I know that and like, we've been working with MLK Labor Council. They have a virtual hiring hall, which is really great. And we partner with them because we want to get our union jobs out to the masses as well, to show like these are good union jobs. Come apply, because one thing we hear from our members is that they're so short staffed. They're doing three people's jobs. Who cares about a wage increase if I'm doing triple the amount of work? And like that's the thing, taking it back to the shop floor of organizing. Like if you really want to like get a store involved, if you really want to get people moving, you got to map the work site. You got to know who talks to who. The first thing we train reps is the leader isn't the loudest. The leader is you go into a work site, you say, who would you talk to about a union issue? If they all say Agnes, I want to talk to Agnes, right? Who is Agnes? Let's find her. And one thing we've noticed too with the younger folks now is they don't like the title of shop steward. They don't want it gives them anxiety, right? Because they're like, whoa, I'm a what now? So what we say is either workplace leader, or do you want to know about your work site rights? You know what I mean? Do you just want to know your basic rights? And you could be that, because that title sometimes could get people a little nervous, or I don't know if I want to do that. So, but we just want to and that's the thing. We don't vote on our shop stewards. We don't say there's only one shop steward in the store or whatever. No, there could be 25 shop stewards. It doesn't matter. That's what we want. We want everyone participating. So I feel like trying to get, like right now, I think a lot of our staff is doing a lot of the council work. But I think it's kind of like, we are actively trying to organize ourselves out of a job, right? So if we can get a member that can show up to that, we're going to keep training and finding those members to go and sit on those councils in our stead. So it's not just staff doing it. Because I feel like that's always what we want to do. I never want to be in the front of the picture. I want to be in the back pushing our members forward. And I feel like if you approach the work like that, if you approach the work as I am here for my members, I'm here to make sure they get everything that they deserve and that they need, you're going to be fine. You're going to be successful in doing that. And now you're going to be beating your head against the wall sometimes, because you're like, why do these people just not want to get involved? But you got to put yourself in their shoes. They're working these jobs. They got all the stresses at home. They got a manager and a boss that's not as quite as human as I am as a boss, so you have all these other factors, plus they're tired and it's hard work. So it's like, yeah, of course it's not always going to be first to jump in and do something for their union, but it just comes back to about just showing the value of a contract, and it all is education, sitting down, talking with members, listening to members. Like, we got 2 ears, 1 mouth. We should be listening more than we're talking. And I feel like if we approach it like that, we can win. But I think partnering with the labor councils, partnering with anybody, partnering with elected officials, like that's one of the things like I didn't even realize about our union when I first got it. We have a community organizing department, we have an organizing department, a comms department. We work with a bunch of different folks, so that way we could get a bunch of different perspectives and a bunch of different outlooks on what we're trying to push forward. So I feel like labor council work is very important work and people should be involved, but I do think that we should be bringing more members into the conversation. But like I said, sometimes it's hard to get a member to go out to one of those labor council meetings at 8 o'clock once they worked a 10-hour shift. And who knows if they have a second job, because you know what I mean? So I think right now the capitalist system is working exactly as intended. Keep people busy, keep people away from each other, and just tell them focus on work and just go to work. And like, we got to beat that, because we were not put on this world to live like that.
And so, Joe, wrapping up the conversation, I want to pitch this question to the both of you, and we'll start with you. If I'm listening to this and I'm a steward or I'm, just a member of my union, and I would like to see more activity from my fellow members. I would like to see the union more engaged and more visible and more present, but maybe my leadership is, for one reason or another, kind of not where I would like them to be as an active member, for not even ascribing malicious intent or anything like it. It's just never been done. It's just never been done that we have an active and activated membership. But I'm a member. I'm a steward. I want to see that. I want my members behind me. What are some concrete steps that I can start making to building a more active union?
Definitely. I mean, ask the question. I got involved because I was pissed at the union for taking dues and I had no clue what they meant. So I called and I reached out. And then, my union rep, Joe Mizrahi, he talked me off the cliff and showed me the value of the union, and I want to be a part of it. And I said, I don't want members to feel like how I felt, like, wow, what is this? Like, I wanted to go educate. So I think you have to call that question, and you just have to like set the good example. Like, you have to one of the things when I was a shop steward, I felt like an obligation to represent my coworkers. And when I went out what is called a union leave for us as a spur or a time loss, I went out and I was organizing other workers, our Walmart workers, and like it was so rewarding to me because like I was actually pretty successful at getting in the doors talking to Walmart workers because I wasn't introducing myself as a union. I was introducing myself as Joe Solorio, a produce clerk that happens to be working with his union to try to get you guys to organize so that way you're not bringing down my contract. So like I don't know, I just felt like you have to set the good example of what you feel the union should be. And if you are out there doing it, people are gonna know and they're gonna want to participate too. Setting the good example to me is always the best thing because if you're out there doing it, they'll do it too. If you're not assigning work that you wouldn't do yourself. So I feel like just like participating, going to the meetings, asking the questions, bringing people with you, like and showing them like it's hard, right? Our union is not like every UFCW in the country. Like we're pretty progressive. We are, I would say, on the cutting edge of things. We have great leadership. Like they value bringing members in. I mean, our chief of staff worked at the Safeway warehouse, Sean Embley. Our negotiations director, David Barnes, was at Fred Meyer, right? I was at Fred Meyer. Like we are a member-led, member-driven union. So look for those leaders. We develop those leaders, but we keep those leaders active as well. You have to be able to give them something. You can't just call someone a shop steward, put them through the training, and they have nothing else to do. Because then what are they doing? They're not a shop steward. Are they getting people registered to vote? Are they bringing people out to the vote? Are they trying to sit on the bargaining team? Are they getting people to come to the contract action teams? You have to keep them activated. So I feel like, it's more so than just training. It's also like getting them plugged into their community, getting them plugged into the councils, getting them plugged in politically because we have to beat Donald Trump or we're going to go back. So get our member. We're sending 20 members out this week to Wisconsin to knock doors. No one even asked us, but we're doing it because we know that's what we need to do to make sure the workers are heard and seen. So we have members that have been out since October 7th working politically with us, and we're training them to get out there, get on those doors and get these votes out. Like we have to organize, mobilize, and we have to do it en masse. And we have to do it now, quite frankly. We have to do it now.
Ramona, what about you? What would be your advice if I come to you and I'm a steward and I feel like my union is not encouraging activity among my members in the way that I would like to see, or I'm a member, I'm an active member, and it doesn't seem like many of my fellow members are very active. What would be some of the first kind of concrete steps that you would recommend I take?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Joe. Like, reach out if you feel comfortable. We have many stewards, we have department level stewards. So reach out to like the closest organizer or someone who who is involved in our union, and talk to them about their thoughts on it. Get a group of people together talking about what you want to see improved. Like, get your friends, like maybe your friends all feel the same way. Start talking to them about it and say, hey, let's go to the general membership meeting and let's try to catch the the president. Let's try to catch the director of organizing. Those are our position titles. Let's try to catch them after or maybe even during the meeting and, kindly say, I have this concern, and hopefully your leadership, I'm not sure, won't react in a defensive way, and will be open to your feedback. I think it's better to kind of approach those conversations in the least antagonistic way possible, just because think about if you're talking to your spouse, if you say something like, you do this wrong, you do that wrong, this bugs me, they're not going to react maybe in the best way. But if you say something like, hey, I feel like this is not happening, or could we change how we do this? They might react better. And I think just remembering all of us are people. And like you said, it's usually, in my opinion, not malicious intent. It's that organizing is the hardest thing you could choose to do, but it's the best thing you could choose to do, like what Joe said. So I think just kind of approaching it with assuming good intent, you start organizing the people you know to try to make change in your union. That's happened in I'll just give a quick example. There's been a couple of groups that I've been a part of who had critiques of our union leadership. They had dinner meetings where they would talk about how can we change the way the direction's going? What are we going to bring up in the meeting? How can we set an example of what we want our union to be doing, and then go out and do that? If you think your union isn't talking to people enough, you be the first one to start to find workers and knock on their office door and talk to them. Then come back to the general membership meeting or the organizing meeting, or call your steward and say, hey, I actually knocked on 10 workers' doors and I got this great response. I think that the rest of our union should start to do that. So kind of leading by example, prepping for meetings, coming with concrete ideas. And then talking to that leadership about what you think needs to change and come with evidence of why that is. And hopefully, even if you don't convince the leadership in that moment, you're going to convince other people in the room. And then maybe someone else is going to run next time. But I would say, maybe I'm a little bit naive based on my experience. I would say, though, just to be careful of not making your critiques start to seem like anti-union. I think that's a fine line to walk, because if you're being extremely critical, people who maybe haven't organized before or don't know much about unions, they might think, oh, actually the union sucks. So I don't want to get involved at all, rather than kind of being no, our union is great and it has great potential, but we have to get involved to make it better.
Right. I think that's a really important point, because it can be really easy, especially if you're not aware of the audience. It can be really easy to have complaints as a union militant that then, anti-union people over here, somebody that's kind of on the fence might overhear and think, oh, wow, so unions are bad, right, mister? And it's no, that's not what I was saying at all. Unions are the most important institution probably in the country, and that's why it's so important that we do everything we can to make them good. Really appreciate y'all's time. You've been generous with it. We're a little bit over when you wanted to be able to wrap up, Ramona, so appreciate your patience. Ramona Malczynski, president of UE Local 1466 at the University of New Mexico, and Joe Solorio, grocery and retail division director of UFCW Local 3000. Thank you again, and look forward to talking to you in the future.
Definitely. Thanks, Jacob. Been great.
All right.
Thanks. It was an honor. Great to learn from y'all.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.